Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Done Dissertation Office Hours, where we like to talk with researchers and doctoral students about their educational journey, about their dissertation journey, and talk about all the great work that they've done and how they've leveraged their doctoral degree to do great work outside of the academy. I'm your host, Dr. Ramon Goings, founder of the Done Dissertation Coaching Program, where we demystify the dissertation process so that you can finish your dissertation in 1 year or less. And today's guest is a great friend of mine. I'm just honored to have her on the show with us today to talk about her dissertation journey, her education journey, and then the work that she's doing. So it is an honor to present Dr. Geleana Alston, who is the CEO and founder of the Alston Educational Group. And so let's bring her on. Dr. Alston, how you doing?
I am well. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for jumping on. Just so everyone knows, like Dr. Alston is always looking out for me. Has been a great supporter of my career. And so I just want to have an opportunity for you all to witness her greatness so that you all can know about the great work that she is doing. So I just want to start off first for our audience, just to tell folks about yourself and the work that you do.
Well, first, let me just say thank you so much for this opportunity. You know, I would never miss out on an opportunity to catch up, chat, and talk about research with you. And I appreciate your support in my professional career, my entrepreneurial endeavors. It is much appreciated. And so a little bit about me. I am a proud native of Burlington, North Carolina, and I still reside here and engage in my community.
That's great.
But throughout my career in academia, you know, I have been fortunate to be presented with opportunities. I've been fortunate to engage in research and service and things that I really enjoy, right? So I found myself developing in ways and would find myself helping people. And I said, you know, what if I did this and started my own business too, right? And so back in 2019, I really had the courage and the energy to go ahead and start my educational consulting company. And pretty much what I, share with people is that we help individuals, organizations, and communities of practice push through tensions on their unique journeys of development. And we really help to support them find sustainable and prosperous solutions for whatever pains they may have as they continue to develop within their journey. So that's a little bit about my business. I could go on and on, but I'm not going to do that. But if you want to, learn more about me, just send me inbox me or tweet me or send me an email, and I'll make sure that I will provide the information for that, so people know how to contact me. Right.
Well, that's perfect. And so, I always ask this question because not everyone goes to get a doctorate, right? And so talk about your education journey. Like, what brings you to actually getting a doctorate and actually going through this crazy process called a doctoral program? Like, why do that and put yourself through that torture? That's some people would describe it.
So a lot of people may not know, but I actually have a STEM background. So when I was an undergraduate student at East Carolina University, go Pirates, I had no idea or any intention to become Dr. anyone, right? Early on in high school, I wanted to become a medical doctor, right? And I wanted to become a dermatologist and have my own skincare products for women of color because I had really bad acne, and I was just like, you know what, I'm gonna make my own products and I'm gonna, create, and I'm gonna go to school. Then I learned that, to go to school to become a doctor, medical doctor, you're gonna be in school for a long time, right? The irony.
Yeah, you did it. You did it.
Right. And so my bachelor's of science is in clinical laboratory science, right? And so I worked in a microbiology lab, I worked in a tuberculosis lab, I worked in all of the clinical laboratories within a hospital, but I would find myself serving as the educational preceptor for students when they came for their clinical rotations and complete their practical application component or experiential learning component as they completed their degree. And so adult education found me, right? I had an adult learner as she was completing her clinical rotation, and she would come and she would just be so bothered. That's the best way I could describe it. And she would talk with me and she said, I feel othered. She didn't frame it like that, but now I know that's what she was describing. And so, of course, I could have went on to become get my PhD in molecular biology or microbiology or what have you. But I decided to go to pursue my degree in adult education because I wanted to help faculty develop so that I would not experience another student coming to me, sharing her experiences or his experience or their experience of how they were treated in other because they were an adult learner. And so fast forward, looking at where I am now, that was the moment that really inspired me to pursue a Master of Science in Adult Education from North Carolina A&T State University. And then I went on immediately and completed my PhD in Adult Professional and Community Education from Texas State University. And here I am now.
Perfect. And for those who are tuning in, we have Dr. Geleana Alston, CEO and founder of the Alston Educational Group. And you have comments, drop them in the comment box. We'll bring them on screen. We can take your questions as well as we chat. So, you get your degree in adult education. And so a lot of work I do with doctoral students, a lot of the issue gets to when they're writing a dissertation around their relationship with faculty members, right? And so based on your work, being someone who wants to support faculty, what strategies would you give students to create better relationships with their faculty members in order to get through this process with the least amount of agony, I guess is the word I would use for that?
So one book that I often reference, right, not just for my students or for my clients if I'm doing any type of coaching when it comes to academic writing publications, but also for myself, right, it's this book called The Four Agreements, right? The Four Agreements. And so one of the agreements is, say what you mean and mean what you say. The one thing that I want to encourage doctoral students, even, students who are working on a master's thesis, don't be afraid to engage in conversation with faculty. We are people, right? We're human. We're not super women, super men, super persons, right?
Yeah.
We are very much approachable, and we should know how to engage in conversation. Right. So don't feel intimidated. And for faculty, if you're not creating that environment where your students feel welcome to come to you, then you need to do some adjustments. Right. There needs to be some adjusting. So that's the one of them. And the other is the second agreement that I've constantly remind myself is don't take it personal. Right. Figure out a way to separate a critique and feedback that you're receiving from an attack on you as a person, right? So it is the committee in the dissertation chair's responsibility to validate and verify that you have engaged appropriately in a dissertation process, that your quality of writing is at a certain level, but it is not our position or our place to affirm who you are as a person, right? And I know that sometimes it's hard for dissertation students, or I call them dissertators, right? It's hard for them to negotiate that tension because this is something that is close to them. It's very important to them. And it's not to say that it's not, but oftentimes you have to distinguish between the intention of the support and the approach to the support from your dissertation committee members and the impact. And oftentimes, we regulate the impact, right? We have a lot of influence with that. And so self-regulation is key. I'm real big on, your emotional intelligence and how you engage in this space in academic writing, whether you're as a dissertator or a faculty member, but how we take and absorb feedback and how we control how we react and respond to things. It could really make or break you in this process. It could set you back, and really contribute to your writer's block oftentimes.
That really makes so much sense. And I'm glad you talk about that. Like I try to touch on feedback on every episode of the show, right? Because I think that is one of the biggest pain points for doctoral students. Like, how do I take this feedback? What do I do with it, right? And so I always tell doc students that you need to embrace it and then apply it and then correct whatever the mistakes are, or just learn from what your faculty members are trying to teach you. But if we could rewind time, right, to Dr. Alston and your doctoral program, what was it like when you got feedback, and then how did you respond or like take it in and learn from it? What was your process?
And I know this is going to sound so romantic, right? But this was honestly my experience. I had a beautiful experience. I was blessed with having Dr. Jovita Ross Gordon as my dissertation chair. Not only was she my chair, but her and I had a very well-established mentoring relationship because she was my doctoral instructional assistant supervisor the entire time of my program, right?
Okay, right.
But what it did do was it really coached me. And I didn't realize it then, right? I knew that I wanted to go on and become a faculty member, right? I knew my ambition at the time when I was a doctoral student was to do whatever I needed to do to prepare and be well positioned to enter in a tenure track faculty position. But I did not anticipate working with doctoral students, because the program that I was hired into at the time, we didn't have any engagement. We supported, dissertation students
Sure.
in different programs, but we don't have a doctoral program in adult education at the institution where, when I first started off. But what it did do was it helped me now, as I do support dissertation students, as I coach and support them through my business. It has helped me to understand clearly the appropriate way to approach them, right? And so the other thing that helped me too is I think that I always remembered that within that process, I was an adult learner.
Yeah.
And that I was in a constant state of becoming, a constant state of growing, right? And I have a very humanistic perspective when it comes to learning and development. So for me, just having that understanding from a learning science perspective and, educational psychology, right? I wasn't hard on myself. I tried to do the best that I could to enjoy the process. And I was very disciplined, right? So, I know it's easy to go ahead and, say, oh yeah, I'm gonna write those few pages later after I go have fun,
It's tough.
and kick it. But I was, I was at the place that I was like, no, you know what? I have to put that on pause, because I have a goal and I need to finish this. So the one thing that I would do differently as a doctoral student, I would have celebrated the small wins. All right. I did not celebrate myself. Like, I didn't celebrate, oh, you know what? I submitted the first draft and it could have been horrible. It could have been rough, but I submitted my first draft of my proposal, right? Let me go and have a drink. Let me go and get a facial. Let me do something to celebrate me. I did not celebrate those small moments of triumph and success. And I am very intentional that I do that now as a professional, but I wish I had done it. I think I would have explored Austin, Texas and San Antonio a little differently had I celebrated myself.
No, that's so important, because like in my program, when I coach my students, that's a big piece of creating your dissertation plan, right? It's not only when are you going to get the work done on the dates, but I actually require all my students. So if you work with me, you have to have incentives for everything. So when you submit one chapter, there's an incentive. So whatever it is you need to do, like I had some students in my class, like, oh, I need I want a Louis bag, or, I want something that is my incentive for getting my proposal done. Like I do believe that, because otherwise it's like we're doing all this work and we reap no reward. Because I hate it to say this, but tell me if I'm wrong about this, that when you get to the dissertation defense, right, and they announce you as doctor, there's no like fireworks that go off or anything like that. It's kind of like business as usual and folks move on. So I'm glad you mentioned that about making sure that you would have taken the time to celebrate the small wins.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that you're absolutely right. The fireworks are a little muted, right? So I think there's celebration, but in the back of your mind, you're like, yeah, but I know my committee members, they have some more feedback and I have some more revisions and I have some edits. So it's a strange, the celebration happens when you cross the stage, or, once you're completely, finished, when you submit to ProQuest, that's where you feel the fireworks. But until then, it's a little muted, because that you have some more work to do.
Yeah. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to ask you though about your journey, right? So, you defend your dissertation, but we rewind back. What made you choose your topic? And then how did that transform over time? Or do you always have one topic going into your program and you just carried that all the way through?
I always knew that I was going to focus on mentoring in some degree. And even now, like, as much as I want to dabble and pivot my research agenda and focus on something else, mentoring continues to like just draw me in. Sure. Right. So I knew that I wanted to do something with mentoring. And initially I really wanted to focus on African-American females, particularly within the field of adult education. There are not that many of us, as faculty, sure. Right. Or Black female as faculty within in our field. And so that was an interest of mine. And for me, the biggest inspiration of my dissertation and some of my work now, looking at equity-focused mentoring practices, celebrating diversity and demonstrating inclusive approaches to mentoring, it's really based on the relationship I had with my undergraduate mentor,
Okay.
Dr. Richard Bamberg. He was a white male. He passed away as I was completing my doctoral program. He passed away the second year of my program. And I was just devastated. And I mean, I was just like, oh my gosh, this man has been with me. He coached me. He was really like, I affectionately referred to him as dad number 2. Okay. And I didn't care who thought whatever. We didn't explain anything. If you thought I was his real daughter, that we were fine with that too, right?
Yeah.
But he was my inspiration. And since then I've continued to just be, curious about just the whole research of mentoring, but I also see it, I want to demonstrate it. I want to role model as a mentee as well as a mentor, whether it's a peer mentor or a mentor to doctoral students, mentor to some of my clientele, through coaching. And so that it's just a part of who I am. And it just really, it's really natural. I don't know how else to describe it. It's just something that naturally comes easy and is of interest for me. And I just look forward to continuing to dabble in that space in some regard throughout my entire career.
Yeah. And so you mentioned that, you've thought about shifting and then mentoring stays center of your work. Where do you kind of see your work moving forward? You did this work, starting with your research on, mentoring, and now you've progressed it forward throughout your career. Like what's the next steps for your research? Where do you see it moving to?
So for anyone who's interested in academia, make sure that you have a strategy for your research agenda, right? And so I had a 10-year strategy. Then I have, what do I want to do from years 11 to 15 and 16 to 20, 25, et cetera. Right. So I'm at that 10-year mark now. So now I'm really interested in workforce education, workforce development. We all see what's happening within the economy, within the world as an outgrowth of the pandemic. But this is something that I've been interested in just because of my background in STEM, right? The lack of representation or underrepresentation, underserved populations, women, minorities, et cetera. I'm very, very much interested in that. In particular, supporting adult learners, right? And developing, reskilling, retooling, supporting them as they re-enter or re-engage in the workforce in a different way. So that's one. And then my other is faculty development and career progression. As I've engaged in certain work, I'm really, really interested in that. It bothers me that we do not see many women of color achieve the rank of full professorship. I am troubled by some of the news that we read when it comes to just learning about some of the things that happen in the tenure promotion process. Mm-hmm. And I feel that process, absolutely, the history and the significance of that is really should be where we celebrate mutual commitment, mutual commitments from faculty as well as a commitment to the institution. And both of those parties are committed to helping the institution grow and impact society, right? And I think that it's unfortunately we don't see that. That's not how it's captured often. Yeah, so I'm really interested in how can we reposture this whole notion of really celebrating the work of faculty and depicting or displaying the mutual commitment between faculty and the institution.
Yeah. And so, you touch on, the faculty piece, right? And so I know some folks watching are either doc students or just finishing up, trying to get into those faculty positions. And so what are the things they should be thinking about over that course of their time, possibly on the tenure track, or even if they're not in the tenure track, just like some things as early career researchers that they should be considering and planning for now? Because I think folks don't consider that until it's too late and you're already in a position trying to catch up on like research and figure out how this works. So what advice or strategies would you give to folks trying to navigate this as doc students or as early career folk?
So, Dr. Goins, so I need to look at my watch and see if we got time today for
We
that.
got a little
Okay.
time. I know
Shout out
that's
to Moneybag Yo. Okay. So, the first thing is just to be clear about your research interests, right? Your agenda. Really think about your strategy. I'm really big on strategy, right?
I am too.
And I mean, you think about it, we strategize a lot. We strategize every day. You have to think about, what are you going to put on, right? You strategize your attire depending upon where you're headed to. You strategize your grocery list. You strategize how you clean your house. You think about all of these things, and you do it with intention.
Yeah.
So be clear on your intention. There are a lot of people who I've met. They're like, "Oh, I want to teach. I want to, be a professor in college." And I'm like, "Why? Just so that somebody can call you professor or doctor so and so? Do you think it's just about standing up in front of a classroom or virtually engaging and you're, the quote unquote the expert? No, there's so much more involved in that. And you have to do some exploration to really understand, is this what you want? The other thing I would tell people is be open and honest about your areas and opportunities for growth and development. None of us come into this space and we are stellar in the areas of teaching, research, and service.
Yeah.
And then whatever else. And so, like, just be honest with yourself. There may be some spaces where you can, improve or enhance your abilities, and figure out who do you need to connect with that can help you improve and enhance, right? What resources do you need? Don't act like you can be, as if you're invincible and you don't need help. Because I've seen a lot of faculty who, for whatever reason, right, and most of it has nothing to do with the space that they're in at that moment. A lot of it has to do with, their prior experiences. And I always remember that about adult learners, right? They bring that with them.
Yeah, that's true.
They may be too proud or too timid or whatever other reason to ask for help, right? And then the other thing is that I know that there are a lot of people who are coming and transitioning into the academy. I cannot stress enough intergenerational mentoring, because that's something that, my work, I really look at that and the whole notion of age. So you and I are fairly, we have youth, or at least people assume that we are younger, right? And so be open to that. Just like when it comes to race, gender, other cultural characteristics, don't be afraid to learn and engage from one who is of a different age group than you, right? Because it's about experience, and it's about their demonstrated impacts and their demonstrated abilities and competence. And, don't be too proud to engage and invest in it, because I think that people miss out on the opportunity because they have a traditional mindset when it comes to, what a mentor looks like. Or, oh, I should be mentoring this person because I'm older. Well, that's not always the case in academia.
Yeah. No, that's so important. When you talk about the intergenerational mentoring, it's just so important. I've had so many mentors from so many different places really just give me a piece of the game here, give me a piece of the game there, and you start to put the puzzle pieces together. But a lot of folks I'm finding don't think about this till it's too late. And also, as doc students, even though you're in a doctoral program, they're not often taught what faculty are doing. So I see a lot of these clashes with my clients, right? Because they have a perspective, and I give this example all the time. I had somebody who said that they submitted their dissertation proposal, so it was like 80 pages, to their chair on Friday afternoon. And they said, oh, it'd be great to get feedback by Monday. And it's like, you shake your head like, no, that's not realistic. That's just, why would you do that, right? It's so not knowing that as faculty, one, we have a life. And then two, the weekends, not working on the weekends, depending on your schedule, how you operate. But then also we have to do research, we have teaching, and we also have the other doc students, and there's other service that you just don't see. You just see us as someone who can do the work. So I just always try to give doc students that insight, because there's all these other things happening behind the scenes. It's just interesting that in a doc program, you don't actually know what your professors are always doing. And then these clashes come as a result. But I think that mentoring that you mentioned is so key to getting through this.
Absolutely. Just like we encourage doctoral students to set boundaries, we have boundaries as well, right? We have boundaries, and we need that to stay, to replenish, to maintain a certain stamina to help us support, doctoral students and do the good work that we need to do.
Perfect. And so one of the questions I got from doc students that I always get, and I always want to get your take on this, the chapter they struggle with the most, I'm finding, is the literature review. That seems to be the area, like, I don't know how much to write. I'm writing too much. I'm not writing enough. What have you found over time mentoring doc students, and even through your own work on writing the lit review? What are some ways that people can even think about this slightly different, so it's not as daunting of a chapter to write?
Oh, so I'm gonna just go ahead and forewarn you, and if there are any academicians out there, you all will probably not like what I'm about to say.
And folks, drop comments in if you have questions as well.
Please, we can engage in conversation with this, in another session, just fully focusing on that. But I do look forward, and I think that we are at the space now that the traditional or historical approach to literature review, we really need to adjust. Number one, we are occupying digital spaces, right, when it comes to our literature. And I say this as a former editor, co-editor in chief for adult learning. I am on the publications committee for AAACE. It's not like it once was when it comes to literature review. We don't have to travel across the United States to go to that one library and find that one textbook or that one dissertation. We have a different type of access, and we have a different type of expediency when it comes to that access. And so I really look forward to us seeing the dissertations that have the hyperlinks within the literature review. And so for me, I am of the approach that I don't like a long literature review. I like for it to be concise. I like for it to be synthesized, and I like for the writer, right, the dissertator, to really illuminate. So these are the key studies that have really explored this topic. And, here are the similarities, the differences among these. But even though they have looked at this, here's where my study adds a little bit. It addresses a different type of space or a different component within this gap in the literature, right? So as long as I can see that illuminated there, I'm fine. I don't like to read an exhaustively long literature review. Especially because if I want to know more about that literature, I can pull it up, I can search it, I can go and read about it. And I know some people feel, oh, well, they haven't exhausted the literature. Well, honestly, I'm wondering, how can you actually exhaust the literature?
You can't. It's just impossible.
I mean, and again, we have so many outlets, right? We have an increase of books and chapters and ebooks and podcasts. And so I'm really interested in what are some of the new 21st century, right? What are some of the current places and spaces where work is disseminated? What is that saying as well? And so I think when you couple all of those different factors, I'm if you just provide me with the correctly formatted APA bibliographic information, I can find that information and review it, at more in depth at my at my leisure.
Yeah, that's just so key, because I'm with you on that. I'm starting to understand, like, the lit reviews don't need to be so long. I'm finding some lit reviews, like, they end up writing the historical perspective of the topic, and it's not even relevant, honestly, to their topic. And it's almost like, well, what's your study about? And then what are the big buckets that we need to focus on that are related to your study? And let's get out of this lit review. Let's get in, get out. We can do this 25, 30 pages. You move on about your day. But what do you think we could do to change the perspective? Because you brought up something about the digital platforms like podcasting and all those types of things. How do we change faculty to allow that and consider that as valuable data to talk about in a lit review? Like, because they don't, if a student comes on, you know how it goes. If a student really comes on and, like, has a lot of podcast citation, they're like, well, what's this? This is not the literature. So how do we balance that?
I know you're going to find this response interesting. I think it first has to start with the faculty changing the policy of how we evaluate ourselves as faculty. Right? So the faculty handbooks, the evaluation rubrics, the measures that are used, right? So if you incorporate, podcasts and TED Talks and things of that nature as and really embrace those as scholarly works, and use those to support or deem those as quality evidences when it comes to tenure promotion, that's an easier way to translate the significance and its value or quality when it comes to when your doctoral students do it,
Right.
right? Because the reality is if it's quote unquote, and this is just to be very plain, if it's good enough for us to use to support faculty career progression, right, and demonstrate evidence of impact, then why is it not good for the doctoral students? The other part is that if you think about how long it takes sometimes for the publications to the whole schedule and timeline for publications, oftentimes it may take a book 2, 4, 5 years to become published or achieve that publication. The data then is a little older, but when you have a podcast or you have a digital space, the timeliness of it is a little different.
Yeah.
Right. So it could have a different type of relevance when it comes to just the timing of it all. I'm not saying that you can't go and publish later, but I encourage people, infographics, podcasts, TED Talks, Instagram, LinkedIn Live to disseminate your work. There's nothing wrong with giving a preview. I know Sage, they welcome it wildly. A lot of the other publishers, you can continue to publish and provide your, submit your manuscript and get that published. But it didn't take but 30 minutes, an hour for you to get on and just chat.
Yeah, it's just a mess. And I want to get your take on this, because this is something I've been talking a lot about on my Instagram, is about the idea that as academics, right, we put our best work into these publications, and as soon as they get accepted to the journal, we have to sign over copyright. So at that point, we lose all rights to that work. Technically, the journals have it. We make no money with the publication, but then the journals can charge the libraries for access to our work. I just find, I compare the publication, what we're going through as academics, to like the music industry, right? And I always say we're getting a new edition deal where, we end up with $2.87 and we went on a world tour and made millions of dollars. Like, we're giving publishers our work. So what are your thoughts about that? Like, how can, as academics, we think differently about how we disseminate and get our work out there, in terms of, is that publishing tradition with these journals the route to stay on, or do we need to do something different?
That is it's a difficult conversation, because on one hand, some people are not open to open access. Also, when you think about the peer review process, and I'm thinking about the STEM side of the house as well, the whole scholarly genealogy of the journals and the editing is, I do recognize the significance of it, and I don't think that that's going to go away.
Yeah,
I don't think that whole approach to academic publishing will go away. Now, what I do, anticipate is that we will see more open access journals, right, or common copyright, where they, the copyright will be different. And I also hope that we will get to see more reprints, right? So you can always request a permission to reprint your work in another space, and it's something that you would have to engage the publisher and engage them in conversation, but there is that option.
Yeah.
But as far as just that whole copyright issue in the publishing, I don't foresee it changing in the near future for academic journals.
Yeah, it's just interesting. We're in this space, like all these digital options, but like you said, it goes back to faculty promotion, tenure, the handbooks, that if they don't value it, then folks won't do it, especially if compensation and your livelihood in terms of having a job is tied to it. So I see what you're saying, but it's just hopeful. I'm just hopeful that at some point we start rethinking this a little differently with our process. And
now, I will say this, though, as an entrepreneur, I will encourage you. There are certain things that, yes, you need to publish. You need to publish in your journals. But then there are certain things that you need to keep it to yourself if you are an entrepreneur, right? And there are certain things that are not for free. So I have work that I publish under my auspice or under my identity as associate professor affiliated with North Carolina A&T, right?
Sure.
But then I have work that I do when it comes to my business that I publish and use that solely for my business. So you have to pay for those resources that I developed.
Yeah.
That has nothing to do with my work at A&T. Right. So you, as if the money, right, because there's stuff that we do as academicians, we don't do it for the money. We do it because it's in here.
Right.
Right. It's a part of our purpose. So no, we don't expect for people to pay us for that knowledge. And I do believe that, absolutely the whole, knowledge should be free. Yes, I agree with that. But we do live in a society where, cash rules everything around me. Like I have bills. Like, I'm just being transparent. I have goals. I want to go on a vacation. I want to do some things for my mom. I want to, pay off my house.
Right.
Things of that nature. Like, and that's just a reality. And I'm not ashamed of that. Right. And so you just have to make sure that you distinguish what's most important to you for profit versus what's important to you for promotion, or, for what you're trying to do when it comes to your career progression.
No, that's great. That's great. And with that, I just want to, and we'll kind of end things here, is that I just want you to tell the folks about your educational consulting company and kind of what the work that you're doing right now and what you're looking forward to doing with that. And then how can folks work with you if they're interested in utilizing your services?
Okay. So first, I would say that my company, again, we help and support people on their unique journeys, right? So I would say we focus on 4 areas. One is quality assurance and compliance. We provide support when it comes to project evaluation, for funding, such as NSF, NIH, other corporate foundation grants, and extramural funding. So we help the research teams when it comes to their evaluation of those projects. The second one is, of course, academic writing and publishing. I have over 10 years of experience in the academic editing, journalship world or realm. I've seen it from the time it hits, and I've been an editorial assistant all the way to the editor-in-chief. And so I definitely utilize those skills and help people. I have one-on-one coaching as well as group writing boot camps and a lot of different resources to help people with their struggles, whether they are a student, but primarily as faculty. Or academicians or administrators transitioning back into a faculty role or to a faculty role, right?
Sure.
The other is, of course, adult learning. And so I will help you better or enhance your abilities to properly engage adult learners, whether you are doing teaching. I do teaching observations for people, help them when it comes to developing and reviewing curriculum reform to make sure that they have equity-focused engagement practices within their, as they engage their adult learners, whether it's face-to-face or in online environments. And then the fourth one is just developing habits of accountability. So that's where the faculty career progression. That's something that I have just learned throughout my career. And have helped other people.
Sure.
Oftentimes we struggle with holding ourselves accountable. We want to hold everyone else accountable, right?
Right.
But we struggle when it comes to holding ourselves accountable, and really, we realize later on the impact that has on your career progression. And so I coach and help people develop their strategies for development, help them to identify some of their areas of pain, points of pain, and how to address those and move forward with success and prosperity.
Perfect. Well, with that, I will drop Dr. Alston's information in the notes for today's episode. I just want to say thank you to Dr. Alston for joining us. You provide some great insight on your journey, how we think differently as faculty, how faculty can work better with students, and how we can make our education spaces better. So I just want to say thank you so much for tuning in. And I'm going to talk with you behind the scenes after the show wraps up. So just stay on with me for a minute.
Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure.
Perfect. And so I just want to say thank you all for tuning in. Again, it's Dr. Ramon Goings with the Done Dissertation, where our goal is to demystify the dissertation process so that you finish in record time. If you feel like this has been valuable to you and you want to join and actually be a guest on the show, feel free to text me office hours to 301-701-2466. And again, I look forward to hearing with you all, and I look forward to tuning in with you all next week when we have our next guest, when we talk about various aspects of the dissertation process. So again, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in a DM, shoot me a message. I'll be glad to bring them on the show and talk with them next week. I hope you all have a blessed week, and I look forward to seeing you all next time.